think that since you're on the city council, you know everything that's going on in the county.
Well, what they need to do.
Sometimes when they think you're an assessor, you know everything is.
Cities back in high school, I said you have a city council. And you have
County.
County commit, and they're not the same. And
And we all pay taxes.
Since you're on the city council, you know everything that's going on in the county.
Well, I'm saying.
I mean, seriously, how many times do you get that?
Nothing to do with what's that. By the way, I had a guy going to lunch the other day, which is. I do bad with that. I look over that, looking at that piece.
Well, we'll have to.
I think it's something to
Speak
see.
loud.
It is now about bringing service machine. So I just really quizzing you people that talk about.
Well, we're live, Mayor.
We're live?
Yep.
You guys see the charter?
That really, that's horrible shot right there. Okay, everybody, sorry for the delay. We've had some technical difficulties. It's now 6:30, so we'll bypass the.
Turn the mic on.
Oh, thank you.
It won't matter.
Oh,
Just to-
Talk about recording.
Will it pick it up for you?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, yeah, use your mic then.
let me get my head here. Let's see.
When you're on TV.
Who's on TV?
We wanna brush through real quick, in the work meeting, we're going first welcome everybody here to our city council work meeting, May 13th, 2025. And we have a start of 6:30 instead of 6, but thanks, Ty, for figuring it out. So let's just go into item number 1, and thanks for your patience, you know. The Morgan County Historical Building Property Tax Credit.
Okay. Let me just go with it.
I read
Sounds
through it and, I'm glad it's you that's explaining it.
All right, well, we actually, it came about, so obviously the assessor doesn't do taxes, so that should be, do I need to turn this on too? That should be very much understood, that I do not do taxes, but I was willing to help wherever I can. Last year, the county, I worked with the clerk auditor and we did one for Morgan County specifically to help with some of our older citizens that maybe are struggling to pay their taxes. And so we called it the homestead exemption. But I was willing to help. And it is very similar to the indigent one, so they have to be qualified to be able to get that tax exemption. And so as a county-wide, what we have done is we have approved that you have to live in your home for 25 years or more. And that you have to be 65 years or older and making $50,000 or less. And then you can qualify for that tax exemption. So as I was doing that, Cheryl Gross actually reached out to me and said, hey, I have a question about the Morgan Valley Preservation Society and maybe trying to keep some of our historical homes improved because they are so expensive to improve. When we start getting into them and we have to basically keep them maintained to a historical status. Sometimes that can be pretty laborsome and also expensive. So we used that thought process as we were kind of making maybe a tax credit that would help our mostly city is the part that we're really focusing on. It is very much kind of going into it. We're looking about 100-ish homes / businesses. And as you know, like the city has about 1,900 parcels, give or take right now. So it would be about 100 homes that would be basically qualifying for this if we were proposing this tax credit. Now it can go either way. We kind of had to make those thresholds of where we wanted the lines to be. of where we wanted to say, maybe if we say if it was prior to, 1939, 1940 is where maybe we want to have those homes that we could basically claim as historical. You know that there's some of the homes that we have that people have done, maybe they put like a metal roof on them. So there's disqualifying spaces that they also have. So what I said is, as the assessor, I'm fine making that jurisdiction after basically the Historical Society and the Morgan Valley Preservation makes me a list of homes that maybe would qualify, or that they've done their due diligence and made their space of saying, okay, we do qualify for this, we are putting money into this, we're trying to keep Morgan in this home into the historical space of where it should sit. And where it could be, same thought process of like the tax credit, once we evaluate. And basically put that check mark that they are in that group. What we would do is basically say, you get as a home credit, you could get up to that $1,200 in tax credit. Or 20%, whatever that is of that threshold, and then also for a business. Would be about 50% to about $2,000 in their taxes. So we have not proposed this to the county commissioners yet, but we're kind of just seeing how, I guess, the feels are towards the city, because they're the ones that are gonna be most, I guess, it's gonna be more laborsome in the city than it is anywhere else in the county, to make sure that this is going forward. And so the guidelines, she has good definitions. We've gone through kind of as a group to kind of go through like what the, I guess, delineation of everything, how you qualify, what kind of things that you have to maintain. One thing that as the assessor that I very much said is that it needs to stay above average, as quality. And so it can't be depleted, in the look or the structure of it. And so that would be something that, I would be also assessing, is saying, is it staying above the standard that it needs to stay in?
On that, what is Marshall and Swift?
So Marshall is Swift is the cost for the United States, so it's all over, what we use as a cost table for basically the building blocks of how to make a home. So it would be all of the structures that we would use, all of the building information, and they put a cost table together. So each year they go through and they say, okay, where, how much is building values of everything, and that's what we cause as the assessor, we use a cost table from Marshall and Swift. And so it's a national standard, it's something that we're using to be able to evaluate, to make sure that we're staying transparent with our evaluations. So we're not just saying, well, they used, oak and this one used pine. Or however they are, or metal, the metal structures, like they're all going to have a cost table that are all similar to the rest of the nation. And so that's what Marshall and Swift is, though, is they basically pull in all of the information of what the building costs of all different structures would be.
So reference that an appraiser can use to kind of cross-reference or double check his or
Evaluation.
Yes, evaluation or other work also. It's a it helps someone check to see that they're in line with what there may be other assessment. It's one way of assessing, looking at evaluating
Yeah.
property.
One way of just keeping things standardized as well. So we're not in different areas. We do have factors that we place when we decide to value in different areas, but we all use the same evaluation of trying to get the standardizing. And that's Marshall and Swift that we use.
So did you say average, so rank 2, or was it rank 3?
So average would be the ranked 2.
But that's what you said, that would be the.
That would be the very minimum. Like, we can't have it as the low, or, it's falling apart. Low is basically falling apart.
Yeah.
So,
So it ascertains the maintenance, the condition of the property, is Marshall and Swift, and that gives it a ranking.
yeah, basically it's all the building spaces of what the structure looks like. I mean, it has the look, it has what the, all of the things that we're going to build with. So anything that they use to build with, if they were to improve, you can actually make your home more valuable by the time, you structure it. It would make, you could have a quality change from an average to a good. Or if you were a high end, you could go clear to excellent in how your building structure is.
If you, I mean, for the purpose of your work here, the Marshall and Swift component is just part of what Marshall and Swift does. I mean, that isn't everything that Marshall and Swift does. If you had said to your appraiser or to an appraiser, appraise my home, he would say, here's the condition of your home. What were they for? Not good, average.
Yep. Yep.
Was it with this?
There's like good plus, there's.
Yeah, so then you'd say, well, to say good, to say it's average, that's pretty, random. Okay, well, we can go to Marshall and Swift and they define, so that on a national one, there's a standard that says, here's what an average home, if it's using that standard should look like.
Yeah, and what it does is it actually takes out biases of different areas, so you can't go into a certain area and say, well, these are definitely excellent, but in the rest of the world, they're just good.
Yeah, that's.
It's just standard, it's just standardizing where you basically put the, so everything is, what we do as my job is make sure everything has a base, so the base is by cost. And then what we do is then we have the factors by area, neighborhood, likeness. There's a lot of other things that go involved in that, square footage, year built, all of those have their little like place that they have an evaluation status. So this is basically just trying to keep those homes up to date, or at least preserved would be more of, I guess, the better word. Keep them preserved to be able to not only help our community, but I think it's keeping that historical space involved, because it's really a hard, also, I talked with the preservation and I said, it's a hard space to kind of defend as well, especially going forward, because there's some people that maybe would just say, well, it's just an old building, it doesn't matter. But maybe it does matter historically because of what it basically made Morgan, right? So the kind of thought process is, that they would qualify each year to maintain. They can be taken off at any time that, deemed necessary, that they're not being compliant in that space. And so we wanted to make sure that we had control over what the area was, because it is a tax credit that's going to everyone else. So it will it benefits them in some spaces, but it also, other people are paying for that tax eventually, right?
Would you ever consider a longer period, maybe a 5-year period of qualification?
We could.
Just like that's quite to have to turn around every year and go through a similar process could be a little bit onerous and may detract people from doing it. But if you said, well, chances are that home isn't going to deteriorate too much. They may not, they may make some improvements and remove it from a historical basis. But and so you want to have a timeline that would say, yeah, every so often we need to look at it and make sure it's still historically significant.
Yeah.
But
That's something to look into as well.
Maybe you want to extend that out. Just a
Yeah.
little bit.
The one reason why we kind of did it by year is because they do have that exemption status does change every year. And so whether we decide to go, with this tax credit, if we just say, so for 5 years, this is what it can be. Or whether we go every year, because they do increment up just because of inflation and things like that they have. And that's why we were saying maybe if we focus on it each year. This is kind of uncharted ground, so it is very much new. We do have stuff from the state that is kind of looking at us as well, because this is definitely something that is new. And maybe they would want to adopt it as a state as well, but we're not sure yet, but what will happen with it, but.
Maybe you could have a renewal process each
Right.
year for say 5 years. It isn't quite as involved as the entire process.
Yep.
So does the home finally get to the stage where it's complete, restored, or is it just a continual?
Well, I think
process?
every home has the maintenance issue, right? But I think if we can kind of keep it manageable, a lot of them just really feel, when we were kind of talking about this with the historical and with the preservation, Even like our businesses on Commercial Street. I mean, they put so much money into that and it will look beautiful when it's done, but it's millions of dollars. To just keep the structure up, let alone putting something in it. And we kind of realized that we struggle with commercial in the first place. And so we're trying to deal with commercial, but then also deal with historical space as well. Especially on Commercial Street. And I know that's one thing, I do the personal property accounts as well. And our commercial struggles.
Yeah.
In our county. And it's very burdensome to our commercial people that are there, because honestly, we give them a good 5 years before they may succeed or be no longer a business. So I think it's definitely one of those that, it could very much be more focused even towards commercial. But I mean, that's kind of just, we kind of had to make that area of where is our line that we want to keep in. And so, it's mostly just information right now of where we want to maybe think about going and maybe presenting. And that's one thing I really, we probably will take this to the commissioners as well. There was, our attorney, Garrett Smith, was talking about this and he said, well, there kind of is some personal interest in this. Because some of these people have, historical homes. He said, so I don't know if, we really want to support specifics, but he's like, you're more than welcome to take it to the commissioners. And it's just kind of a thought process, if people will get behind it, like we're willing to kind of go forward with it, but it's all really, the opportunity is there and maybe there is some way that we can help. And I just know that the city is the one that's going to be the most affected because of just where the historical homes and businesses are.
So the question in my mind is, let's say the city wants to adopt it and move forward with it. There's the county commissioners, they can't like debunk it, right? I mean,
Well, no, because you're your own government, right?
But it's
It's
tax credit is a county.
Yeah, the taxes.
Right.
Doesn't affect.
But if they have the city approval, right, that they're gonna be able to listen to that a lot more too. I mean,
It would be an endorsement.
again, I am just the assessor. So I just do valuations. I don't even do taxes, but it's one of those where I just think, if it's something that there's more people that get behind it and more, if they feel like that there is a need there. I feel like that the county commissioners will listen to this and that they will be able to say, you know what, I think this is gonna be a good space. Maybe we do.
It really is.
Change that.
County commissioners.
They will have to sign off just because
Credit. yeah.
the tax credit is not just the city. Yeah,
Well.
Property tax.
Well.
because all of the functionings, we have 15 line items that are taxed if you're from the city. Right, that we have the 15 line, and the other thing that would be good too is to take this also to the school district, because they also have, 40% of that tax as well. So it's one of those that it is very much just an idea space. Collaborating together of what would be a good way of maybe pulling a tax burden that, if we could help them in other spaces, maybe it would be good. They do also, they work to get grants and things like that when they have a historical home. There is different grants out there as well, so.
Would there be any way of determining what maybe a financial impact would be for each of the three entities, the city, the county, and the school?
Yeah, I think we can do that number.
Yeah.
And see where
would be
that is.
helpful to say, here's what you're buying.
When we did the one for the homestead exemption,
Sure.
we had the numbers of how much
Yeah.
per area of the taxes that would be pulling.
Well, kind of, not what we're discussing, but I'm curious, what is the difference between your homestead exemption and your circuit breaker?
So the circuit breaker is very similar. The reason why I pushed it was because
Pushed the homestead?
I pushed the homestead is
Okay.
because it is $40,000 or less. And most people in Morgan make a little more than a lot of other counties. And so it's still burdensome on our older generation. And that's really why I pushed the homestead one, is because it qualified about 70 more people that could qualify for it.
The homestead was what was the?
And
50,000?
And I put it to 50, we put it $10,000 more.
50,000.
Mhm. So it was one that we pushed a little harder just because of their situation. You know, our average home last year was 753, something, 763, something like that. So, and that's countywide. But to say that we have $1 million home is an understatement. We have a lot of value in our county. And so the people that are school teachers that have lived here for 80 years, it's a struggle for them. It's a huge struggle for them because they're on all their stipends and things that they have, you know, and we're really taxing them out of their house.
Well, and they don't get the benefit until they die and their
Exactly.
kids get it.
Yep, and then their homes are still selling for $800,000, right? And so I'm seeing that as the assessor as well, that our values are raising. So, and the other problem is we don't have commercial, so that our tax burden is on the citizens.
So with either one of those two credits, when that home eventually sells, is there back taxes like there is like on Greenbelt or something like that?
There would not be a back tax. The only thing that they have now, right now, in that exemption status, they do have a deferral right now that it's, I think you have to be 75, but it is a deferral value that you can go in and say, I only want to spend, you know, 3,000 or whatever they state, and then any excess tax that they owe goes on to the end of the home. And then they pay that off at the end.
But that's not the case with like.
But this would be, and this, the homestead one is a write-off that the county does.
All right.
And so it's a write-off. And so, you know, I mean, I think it's just trying to find those little niches of maybe people that do need help in our county. To make sure that they can stay in a lot of ways. So, or that they would, I mean, one thing with this one is it will beautify a lot of those older homes. When they have those standards in place. And maybe, and I know it's not like it's a lot of money, but you know, if you're not paying $1,000 in taxes, maybe you could put it towards something else, right? So,
They must have done something like this at Colville, because there's some gorgeous historical buildings.
Even to travel around the state,
Yeah.
I've seen some.
Spring City.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was gonna say, that's one of them.
Yeah.
Man, they've done a phenomenal job, but some of those older homes just look fantastic, so.
and a lot of the people, you know, take care of it themselves, and a lot of them, I mean,
Yeah.
the ones that are nice in our county, that they've put a lot of money into it.
Yeah.
The other thing that preserves our historic district designation.
Absolutely,
It
I
does.
thought of that too over there, so.
Yeah,
And with this, as we've been kind of talking about as a group, I mean, it's been, you know, said that if it does work well for maybe our county, that other counties would start to adopt it as well, because there's a lot of historical things that are in Utah in general.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it may be something to
Give it
think
a
about.
nod.
Yeah, I like it.
There's no downside to
Yeah.
it at all.
So you want us to send a positive recommendation to the county commission?
Hey, you know what? I think that would be wonderful. I think it would be really good to have a recommendation, because I really think that, you know, the city and the county really do need to work together with things.
Yeah.
And the things that are important to the city should be important to the county as well.
Okay,
So,
Thank you.
yeah, you're so welcome. Just, Yeah.
Good information.
here for some information, and
I love it.
I'll help where I can, I guess, is the thing, but. You know, I would still value it, and that's one thing that kind of was discussed, like, the valuation will still be at market value. Because we need to make sure that that's just fair and equitable, to make sure that we're staying at market value, but maybe we could help in the exemption status of taxes.
So I don't,
Maximum exemption, how do you arrive at those figures? The two?
So this was actually just derived from the state, so we get that every year from the state. Same thing with like a veterans abatement that they have. Each year they evaluate what the costs and everything, and each year they raise or lower, however it goes, but most of the time they're raising. Like this year, I think with the veterans, it was like $505,000 of evaluated property that they could take off if they were 100% disability, so.
So this is kind of a convoluted question, but I'm sitting here thinking about it and I'm thinking there's some homes already in Morgan City. But what happens if it's a historic building, but there's been some modernization to it?
Right.
They've added on to it, they put siding. I mean, does the building have to be pretty much
So
rebuilt?
it pulls a lot of the integrity out of it, and that's why when we were talking about this, I was like, well, we really have to have the Morgan Historical Society and the Morgan Valley Preservation very much involved in this, because I'm gonna look at it and I'm just gonna evaluate to what,
Yeah.
as I see,
Yeah.
right? And if they've made improvements, all I care about really is the effective age, what the Marshall and Swift is saying, you know, where my standardization is coming from. I don't really,
Yeah,
I mean, I do have some of that effective age playing involved, but the historical factor is not part of my evaluation. I'm not gonna say, well, you know, I know who lived there at one time or another, so it makes it more valuable.
yeah.
But they would be able to say whether they qualify or whether they only have a 50% qualification of this, so maybe they only get a $500 credit or whatever it is, and I think that's where it's up to 20 to that threshold of a dollar figure that they can't go higher than that dollar figure.
That concept is built into your process here. The building has to remain historically significant. You can only imagine a log cabin that's been added on to that was
Yeah.
maybe 800 square feet to begin with, now the home's
Yeah.
5,000, it's
Yeah.
not, historic.
And as our historic district designation, we have a list of every home has been,
That have qualified.
that have qualified, and some of them are significant contributors and others are contributors and others.
Yeah.
So it has
It's evaluated.
they still contribute in some manner to the,
So I guess what I'm
To the
saying too
district.
is it's gonna take work, right?
Yeah,
It's gonna take an evaluation each year. Or that's what I really was saying. I'm like, if you give me a list, even if it's 100 homes, I'll go down the list and I'll check mark them. And we can put whatever we need to evaluate it on there.
it's really up to the homeowner to present,
sure,
the homeowner come in and
apply.
apply, yep.
What's the difference between historical society and preservation, Morgan Valley Preservation? Historical
So-
Society is a county function, but I don't
Yeah,
know, I've
the-
never heard of Morgan Valley Preservation.
Yeah, the preservation group is a nonprofit, so they form themselves. Cheryl Gross is the chair. They have little officers, but
It's not a county function.
it's not a county group, no, it's a little group that's just really concerned. They started with their concern for Commercial Street and the depot and anyway, Mayor and I go to their meetings and
Yeah, Historical Society though is a county.
Yep.
function. There
Yes.
is funding from the.
yeah,
county.
and they have representation on the board, on the preservation
The
board as well.
preservation.
Mhm.
I wonder if that's where maybe more is, if that's the more appropriate, that preservation would have the representation on the historical society. I mean, you could form 10 not-for-profit,
Yeah.
entities, and which one deserves the ability to make the decisions?
Yeah, they're pretty closely related, the same people.
Mhm.
It's pretty close, but the nonprofit can take donations a lot easier and do
Some of their
whatever work that they want.
processes overlap.
Yeah, like they're the Front Street Festival, they joint plan that. It's just sometimes the nonprofit is more flexible on receiving and spending money on projects that doesn't have to go through the county.
But they can get the funding without going through doing RFPs and stuff.
Yeah.
Would a preservation group turn down a request then?
They would give the advice to,
I think that we would just get the list from both of, like, it would be that would have to be from both of them. That they would have to basically make that list,
Agreement.
yeah, and then whether we have that. Taxpayer come in and that they would have to fill out. That information that they would get approved or denied or whatever it is. But I think it has to have probably both of these on there just to be able to evaluate. They need to kind of be the jurisdiction on how they're gonna evaluate it, if they're gonna approve or deny it. For that year, because they know a lot more of that space. And if it's actually credible, historical, or if it's just saying it's just an old house, right? So.
Hey, is there any more discussion?
Thanks for being with us.
Yeah.
It's an interesting concept.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I don't think anything can fox, but it'll qualify, but I.
No, you're still gonna have $1 million bond. No, just kidding.
The rose and bones.
Yeah.
Tony, your home's only a year off, isn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe they'll make an exception for Tony's house.
Doggy's barn where they was first married.
That little home there.
They've been married for 51 years, so.
Was it called? Yeah. That's an interesting concept.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome anytime.
Appreciate you taking your time for us.
Yeah.
Guess we'll work out a sort of a plan to.
Yep.
Yeah, and we can just, what we'll do is we can just take that to them, and then if we wanna take it to the commissioners, we can do that as well.
Okay,
Appreciate
See what
your
they
work on-
decide.
your work on it thus far.
yeah. Way good. So we'll get you home before 9.
Interesting
Okay.
concept.
Thank you.
Put us on.
It's a good thing. Have fun with it all day. Hopefully, other than, right?
Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, let's hurry on to item number 2. The chicken ordinance.
I don't wanna stay for that.
I could have some information, I guess, right? Get on that space. Thank
you want me
guys.
to lead that?
Yeah.
So this is just a follow-up from, we had member of the public come a couple meetings ago and present the idea, and they referenced Layton's ordinance and wanted something similar. And so we haven't drafted anything because we haven't had a chance to meet in a work session and talk about it. Mayor and I have talked a little bit about it, and looking at Layton's, they have the sliding scale, and it's all based on square footage, and just administratively, for me, I'd like something that just said, like right now, we have over a half acre, it's 25, anything under, just pick 4 or 6, and you're above or below. The half acre is just, at that point, you can do a mini farm, but if it's less than that, then you're just household 4 or 6 chickens, no roosters. And then the same code enforcement stuff applies. So that's kind of where our thought process has been headed. And then we just never had any input from council. So whatever y'all think.
Pretty simple compared to Layton, huh?
Oh, yeah.
But that's the way we are up here.
Layton's urban.
Okay, I got a couple questions. I'm on board with you, but. So over a half acre, is there a max number that would be in the ordinance? Cause
Right now it's 25.
so the max would be 25, okay.
With no roosters.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
With no roosters.
And trust me, I've done the chicken thing like more times than I care to think about, but you always try to get them without the roosters, and then inevitably here comes a rooster in. Yeah, Oh. Gotcha, sorry.
That's an
experience there, have you heard?
Yes,
4 to 6.
neighbor had a rooster.
Yeah, you could try, but anyway,
Just make up a number. I'm just proposing a number. So
I-
instead of, is it a 10,000 square foot lot? Is it a 12,000 square foot lot, or it's 4, and then for every extra 1,000 square feet, you get another 1? Yeah, it just,
I think that's a great idea, Ty. I really do. It'll be easy to And then I guess along with that would be fence them in and
Yep.
keep them in your yard.
Yeah,
Keep them in a coop or whatever we decided, right?
But,
just contained, you can just,
Contained, yeah.
just keep them
Yeah.
contained.
well,
Borrow some of those.
yeah, I
Some of those
think,
provisions.
that's what I'm- but too, I've heard of somebody putting their chickens underneath their deck. I guess we shouldn't necessarily worry about where or how they're gonna contain them or any of that, right?
As long as they're not feeding on their neighbors.
Yeah, keep them out of.
Recommending we adopt Layton's?
No, that was just, yeah, so the resident referred back and said, can we have something like Layton's? And so that's why we just use that as reference. We can make it totally different or the same. Right now, our ordinance is pretty similar on the half acre and more side. We just don't have anything that allows them. And so instead of going down to that formula, that's kind of my thought is just pick 4 or 6 and hens only.
4, 6.
I'm just,
Less than a half acre.
yeah, one or the, like, I don't know what the right number is, you know,
About,
but up to 6 should be adequate for a family of however many, larger family, so.
what about like the, townhomes, apartments? I mean, obviously. But I mean, can't
Single,
imagine anybody trying to put
you could just put it single family.
single family
Single
home.
family residence.
Yeah, single family residence somehow, cause I'm thinking like the townhomes over by Tractor Supply, they got a little grass area and it's like, well.
But that's not their own space, that's common space.
Like a community garden, a community chicken coop. Yeah, I'm just kidding.
No, well, that's why I'm just trying to,
Yeah, that's good. Though,
I think it, yeah, have to be a single
family home on a,
sort of a deeded lot.
yeah,
Or you're
kind
gonna
of
say-
just like, okay. Deeded, half acre lot, like there's no common area, no,
Yeah,
Community garden.
yeah,
Yeah.
so if we're on track, then, Gary can draft something for us to actually
Maybe a question for. Gary.
look at, but.
You helped put together Layton's, I'm sure. Is there anything that hasn't worked that, maybe an unintended consequence that you see after the fact? Or does it work good for you? And then secondly, by taking away some of that, if we're not going to use all of Layton's, do you see any, problem that could cause us?
My opinion, after putting all this together, this is our planners that put this together. Planners tend to be, they kind of over plan.
Okay.
But when you haven't got a large enforcement division in your city, because you're, there's might be more in.
Yeah.
One person probably, there are 2 people.
Row.
Oh, Roe, yes. Roe does a great job too. But the simpler the ordinance, the better, because if you go into the backyard, there's more than 4 chickens, that it's.
Measuring square
Right.
feet, footage and so.
The square footage of the line.
Like the public meetings.
So.
Yeah.
So that would be my
Just saying.
recommendation, is to simplify it.
Simple.
The biggest problem we have is. Going all over the place in the neighborhood, which, they tend to chickens.
Not being contained.
Yeah, they need to be contained, and then the other thing is when you're, clean space.
Where's it, Hawaii, where they run lines?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
It's gonna have the Layton.
there's a rooster outside of every Airbnb. Purposely, I think, maybe 3 roosters.
Dave, I never worried about it up right when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But does that make sense?
Yeah, I just want, the last question then, this would require a public hearing.
Yes.
Okay, and does that go through public hearing at the planning level?
If we put it to the planning and zoning, which is.
In land use, if it's part of our land use.
They would have a public hearing.
Okay.
And then planning commission to see.
Within an ordinance, they would recommend to the council. Okay,
And we have a public meeting where you.
all right. then. I got it. Simple, let's come up with something.
Something along those lines then?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah,
Right.
come up with a number if it goes under half an acre, I don't know. What do we do?
yeah, we can outreach, and I think the lady that was here wanted 4.
3 or 4.
3 or 4.
Hmm.
So I just,
And there's some homes that are pretty close together. And,
but,
let them run
yeah,
20 or 30 is not,
yeah,
so. If somebody's aware of the ordinance and they complain, then we have the ability to go say you're not complying. Okay. Well, welcome, young ladies.
Hey,
I tell you, you're excited to be here.
we are actually.
Hey, I grabbed that bowl right there and see if you have a sweet tooth. Pass the time of day.
You go, Avery has a class that requires her to come, you're good. That requires her to come to a meeting, so she gets to see what this is all about.
Okay,
There you go.
well, it's fun. We hope you get so enthused that when your hair's ready, you participate. We're just about just a half hour behind on everything, so we'll just
Yep.
go in that order.
Yep.
Just a half hour
you
later,
can probably
go back.
go back and do the, because then it's RDA and MDA.
During this work meeting, want a copy?
That you like give out, oh, yes.
Here, I can be.
He just needs talking.
You got an extra?
You know, I have some.
Oh, I'll be on.
Autograph by the meeting.
No. Mayor wouldn't have done good in that class.
Yeah, just take your microphone with you. We're kind of ad-libbing tonight, our system,
Oh,
we're running off of a laptop, so normally I'm up there, but I'm the computer today, so.
no worries.
Technical difficulties.
you know.
They happen every day, don't they?
Yes.
So do not many people come to city meetings?
No, well,
Because the county meetings are ridiculous.
sometimes they are, huh?
They must be far more controversial over there.
You must be doing a better job.
You got something.
So, one of the dynamics is the county does the planning and zoning for Mountain Green. So
Okay,
Mountain Green's not incorporated, they're not a city
right.
like we are, and so a lot of the developments that come, through planning.
Yeah.
commission
Go to
Go
planning and
go to
zoning.
the
Yeah,
council, and so a lot of their agenda items are like,
that makes sense.
kind of a lot of back and forth, a lot of input, and we have people that go to our planning commission meeting, but it's just in the city. And it's more well-defined,
Yeah,
our general plan,
well, it gives you a lot of time to actually accomplish it.
and we
You can get through.
you can talk about it or you can just do it.
Good. We have three.
Hi, do you have some light for us?
Yeah.
I don't know why it's called. Because Eric's here.
That's
Finally here.
It was a special hire.
You made it. I made it.
In that way, I know about as much of this meeting as I used to on sheet.
That's good.
Well,
I know
Continue
all
on
right
my-
now.
I could continue on my presentation.
I
For
have
all
no,
your entertainment.
Yeah.
no one invested.
You're a relief factor, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Welcome, everybody, to our Morgan City Council. Municipal Building Authority of Morgan City, our agenda tonight. And we call that a special meeting. I will entertain a motion to approve the meeting agenda. Moved.
And I'll second that, Mayor.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Okay, let's move to item 2, the consent agenda. Municipal Building Authority minute meetings from August 13th, 2024. Everybody had a chance to go through them? Any discussion? Any changes?
Mayor, I read the minutes and we'll move to approve them.
Okay,
The minutes of August 13, 2024.
Second,
okay, we have a motion, a second, to approve the minutes of August 13th. All in favor? I should say August 13th, 2024.
Yes.
We're not into the future of August 25. Okay. This is a fun one, a public hearing, which is full of public.
We have a lot to say.
I don't know if we have, probably no way to know if there's anybody joined us.
I can look. Nope.
Okay. Is the norm.
Mayor, I will make a motion that we open a public hearing to discuss the tentative budget for the 2025-2026 fiscal year for the RDA. the Development Agency.
Is it MBA?
Oh, excuse me, it's, he's been corrected, yes.
Mayor, I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Open the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Hey, Ty? Got anything to say? Okay,
Eric, for the public hearing?
Yeah.
This is just the proposed tentative budget for 2026. That the council's going to discuss. The budget's the same as the prior year. And as a tentative budget, the final budget gets adopted at the end of June. So this basically says they've adopted the tentative budget and now it's available for public viewing. So if anybody wants details or whatnot, they could reach out to me and come and review it line by line. So.
thank you.
Yep.
So pretty much, as you and I have talked, Ty, it's about holding the same line as we've been holding.
Mhm.
As far as figures. Any discussion in the council or?
I mean, it's pretty much.
You want to close the public hearing and then discuss?
It's a good idea, okay?
I move that we close the public hearing.
I'm on a roll, so I'll second that, Mayor.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now let's open discussion.
Don't have any.
It's pretty much straightforward, Mayor. There's not, I mean.
So I can make a comment if you want.
Okay.
So just as a reminder, the revenue source is we charge rent to the health department, the historic society, the human services for the building space that they occupy, and each department also pays for the square footage that they use. And the MBA owns the buildings. And we use that revenue to do the upkeep on the building, so it doesn't come out of individual budgets. We have so much shared space that's why we operate that way, is so one department doesn't, replace all the stuff. So in prior years, we redid all of the lighting, went to LED lighting in the offices. We have plans to replace some of the windows. None of our windows open. And so that amount that's available in the expense line item, it would be under that amount, but that's the type of thing that we use the budget for.
It's been working good.
It has. So it's.
Okay, I guess the motion would be,
Mayor, Okay, Mayor, I'll make a motion to pass resolution M 25-06. Of the municipal building authority. A resolution adopting the intended budget of the municipal building authority of the city. For the financial year beginning July 1st, 2025 and ending June 30th. 2026 and setting a date for a public hearing if you're interested persons prior to adopting the final budget.
Second. Have a second. We have a motion and a second. So. Jeff. Aye. Tony. Aye. Eric. Aye. Dave. Aye. Okay, the motion passes.
What's the one?
Okay, let's move to. Our city council general meeting.
Yep, RDA.
Is there another?
Yeah, I'm getting already.
RDA,
Where's that one?
the one I tried to get on a minute ago.
Okay. I'm gonna look at your screen.
You want me to do it? Get there. Oh, wait, shoot. Here's Steve. Oh, there you go.
Thank you. Okay. Sonora Redevelopment Agency of Morgan City. Welcome. Could I entertain an approval of the meeting's agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Do I have a motion to redevelopment agency minutes of December 10th, 2024?
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve of the minutes of the redevelopment agency, December 10th, 2024.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, let's open a public hearing. Mayor.
We'll make a motion that we open a public hearing to discuss the tentative budget 2025-26 fiscal year for the RDA.
Mayor, I'll second that motion.
Okay. Have a motion and a second to open this meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. That went quick. That's good.
It may, now maybe we're in the public.
The public might have something to say.
So here's why we're doing this, because whenever we do budget, we always have to open it for the public to actually have input into the budget. So these are just different budgets that we have for the city, so. That's really, it's kind of, how do I put, it's more of a formality at this point in time. If there was a lot of citizens that were concerned about where we're at with the budget on these, then they could show up and express their concern about. So, I mean, this looks really funny, and it's kind of a formal thing, but that's why we're doing what we gotta do. Because we're in the budget season,
Yeah.
so, there you go, that's what you can take your class.
What does RDA stand for?
Redevelopment agency.
Perfect.
So I should have. Question.
That's a great question, so.
So, Mayor, maybe we could just explain that the municipal building authority is, the city has to create a separate entity. If it's going to lease space or rent space or use a building for some purpose other than city purpose. And so they create a separate entity called the municipal building authority. They use it to sometimes build city halls, they use it to improve city halls so that we can put the health department down below. And that's that first budget that they approved. It's not a really detailed or complicated budget. The second entity, the redevelopment agency, is an agency that it is really, the city council is the agency themselves. The mayor is the chair of the agency and the council members are all members of the board. And the city manager is the director. But what that's focused on is redevelopment or economic development in the city. And they use a thing called tax increment. When you take a piece of property that has no value or zero value, for example, just an empty piece of land, and all of a sudden you build something on it, it increases the value on that property. For tax purposes, so now instead of being worth $1,000 a year in taxes, it's now worth $50,000 a year in taxes. That difference in taxation is called increment. And the city, if it creates what's called a redevelopment area around that area, can use that increment for a number of years, a limited number of years, to make that area grow, to put new stores in or new economic development. They can improve existing stores like your historic district. They can, in this case, Ty's gonna tell you a little bit about, probably a little bit about what's called the alleyway project that we're going to do. But you can take that increment for a number of years and use that. And it comes from taxes that are collected by the city. The school district has to agree as well, because they have about 40% of the property taxes that are, or taxes that are collected, and other taxing entities as well. They all contribute that for that number of years, and hopefully we make things grow with this agency. And so it's a separate agency, and it has to be accounted for separately. And then we get back to the city's budget, and that's the big one. It's one with everything in it, but I don't know if that helps or.
Appreciate the clarification.
Budget. Very good example of RDA money. It would be a hotel. I mean, that's, these guys taking just a dirt spot, a vacant piece of ground, greenfield, so to speak, and now you're gonna build with a, a pretty valuable piece of property on that, and it's gonna generate a lot more property tax than just sitting there as a green field or an open space, so.
And a lot of times it's used to provide utilities or access or something like that. For example, we would probably not have those, well, I don't know, we might, but the car dealerships across the road, when they came in, businesses, they spend a lot of money to come into Morgan City and to build their buildings. And sometimes the infrastructure is very expensive, like the road that runs in front of the business is expensive to get the utilities there. We use that RDA money sometimes to provide that, which really helps. We wouldn't have those businesses if it wasn't for the RDA money, so it's kind of a good thing.
Yeah.
So. Too much information.
We-
You're wondering, what does this stand for? Why are we?
I
doing
appreciate that. That
three
would
different
help.
budgets? So.
There will be a test at the end of the day.
I'm ready.
We test these guys all the time, and I won't tell you whether they pass.
Acronyms are the demise of old minds.
Acronyms are tough. I agree with you.
So then I know, Mike.
Government has them all. so.
Yes.
You can sometimes go through and do a meeting and not even know what you're talking about. Just use the acronyms. Okay. We close the public hearing, okay.
Mayor, I make a motion that we close the public hearing for the RDA.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We close the public hearing, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, let's move to the active agenda. Item A, tentative budget for 25-26 fiscal year, resolution R 25-07. Any more discussion on that?
Maybe just a recap, Ty.
Sure. So, like Gary mentioned, the big project this year is the alleyway. The budget's for $650,000. 350,000 of that will be park impact fees because we're creating a park space, and then 500,000 will come out of capital improvements. So 650 is in the RDA budget for that project. That's more than we have, so we're gonna go into deficit and then not spend any money for the next, any more big money for the next couple years, and it'll replenish. So the other payment is the reimbursement to the hotel at 150,000 this year. And so we're spending 800 out of RDA on the entire project, but we've already spent a couple $100,000 on buying the properties. And so out of this year's budget, there's only $650 left to spend. And so that's the summary of the budget. And then the payback to the entities, their 25% is also included in that budget.
Hotel spit pays that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, they get paid in February.
Are you aware of what the alleyway is?
Are you asking us?
Yeah.
No, I'm not. I was curious.
It's your country folk, right?
Yeah,
Around the city.
we're on the wrong turf, so yes, where is the alleyway?
Behind Commercial Street.
Oh, behind Commercial Street.
Yep.
Okay,
Park behind the.
There'll be an alleyway that you can travel from Commercial Street to the back of it. Where there'll be close to 50
Parking stalls.
There'll be a great facility there to, say somebody wanted to throw a concert, city has a stage they can use, food trucks, there's just, it's amazing, so.
Be a plaza.
There will be a plaza, yeah.
so does it attach to the hotel there? No.
The hotel parking lot, you can come out the hotel parking lot onto the alleyway. But the alleyway will go behind Commercial Street and then make a turn and come out by Larry's Spring Chicken Inn.
Oh,
So there'll be some additional parking by Larry's that'll get paved and improved.
so is it an outdoor space or an indoor space? It's all outdoor,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
Interesting,
gonna be top notch, it'll be,
yeah, it sounds like
really
it,
help the businesses.
yeah. So it'll go all the way back up to that, like the trailer park there. Right, that, use up that whole space?
It'll be,
Towards that.
it'll be between the trailer court and the back of Commercial Street, yeah.
The length of all the buildings on Commercial Street.
Yeah, I guess I didn't realize there was that much space back there. You don't really pay attention.
Yeah,
No.
when you
That'll
get
be
creative
awesome.
minds, it's, hey, you put a lot together.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
Where would, Ty, where could they, is there a design published? I mean, we've seen it, but is there something that we can, or not yet?
Not published, yeah, but it's been to planning and
Stay
zoning. Stay tuned, yep.
Next year to gondola to the Yam.
That's on record. That is on record.
Fox was green on that deal.
Actually, be a good idea.
Hey, the amount of people that hike up to the M is really not a bad idea. That is an attraction.
We're starting. I could actually get some of us own folks.
That's right. That's right. So did you
Okay.
say you're gonna be able to park 500 cars back there?
50.
Oh, 50. Okay, I misunderstood. I was thinking, wow.
Yeah, we couldn't handle 500.
Yeah, okay. That's still impressive.
It'll be a lot better than what we have right now. It'll be amazing.
Yeah, it'll be
Really
nice.
nice.
Yep.
Well, we definitely need a place for like food trucks to be able to come and people to be able to gather. We are lacking that in this city. So I think it's a great idea.
Are you ready?
For a motion.
Yeah.
Mayor, I will make a motion that we approve, resolution R 25-07. Which is the tentative budget for the RDA. For 25-26 fiscal year.
I'll second that, Mayor.
Okay, you have a motion and a second. For resolution R 25-07. Jeff,
Hi.
Tony,
Aye.
Eric, aye, Dave, aye, okay. We lost Ty, but we have. Item B. Is we have a bid award for the alleyway project.
It's gonna be bad to let Ty explain that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the city. Is it John Junior?
A little bit smaller font.
That's it. Very end, very end.
You would have a little experience as a child, because your pops was a commissioner for quite a while, huh?
I was young back then. I don't remember.
You just know he wasn't ever there.
I remember painting signs. That's how much I remember of it. Yeah, I can't remember what year, what the term was that he did it, but.
City is probably a little simpler than the county.
A little folks.
Seems to be. I've attended many of those meetings. It gets a tad bit more intense.
Well, there's the same feelings in the city as far as what, say somebody might want to develop something,
Mhm,
but it's on a smaller scale.
yeah.
Right now, it's crazy.
Yeah, I got the bid. Yes.
Yeah,
I'm like, Avery.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's for political science.
Is it or is it in the the council? Well, in the council.
Yeah.
Oh, he was county.
Still love you.
I can see vastly different. I mean, 11 o'clock at night.
6:50 and 5.
Yeah, that's hard.
6:50, 6:50 from
Yeah.
RDA at 5 from
Yeah.
Capital.
That is really taking your life in your own hands, I should
That's what that's what he was saying, so.
Yeah. Quite the-
And then it would be start to repay
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. If they do it like they do. Fix it, and you get a lot done. Yeah. You don't see that coming along.
Yeah, the second
See
year.
how people.
Yeah, yes, yeah. I'm gonna start myself. I was gonna anything wrong.
You know, you grow out of it. though.
No.
Yeah, a little bit. You can, yeah, you grow out of it.
The recommendation from the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He says, so you look in the council.
So he doesn't graduate this year. Yeah.
It's like the first of June, doesn't it?
Oh, so soon, he was the first week.
I think he's the first one to leave over whole grade.
And.
Very good.
Colton.
Word.
Yeah.
Considering the awarded bid for the. This is during, we're still in the awarded bid for the contract for the alleyway. Is that need to be a resolution or do we just motion to accept?
June 18th.
In this case, it's usually done by resolution.
Oh, wow.
Is there, I didn't notice whether there was a resolution. Well, I mean, we better wait for this time.
Our nephew was in Mexico right now, Mexico City, on mission, yeah. He left in February.
So,
last year.
so, and so looking for the information, first, memorandum from it's in the council packets, so that the items on the. I can see it on.
Where's Maple?
To Germany.
Germany? Germany?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
that would be good.
So I think that'll be.
That'd be cool though.
But yeah, it's just interesting, I'm making one. And I can say it's not, but yeah.
It's a lot, like I said, the old lake places are nice, so it's not that. So many stores in
I
there.
got a question.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Just pulling up a little bit on the morning bid, any comments for me, then. Secondly, Gary's. Looking at, do we need to accept the bid by resolution?
How would they accept the bid?
Yeah, just awarding the bid, but typically we don't do those by. It was approved, the project was approved.
We've awarded, on the council side, this is the RDA, so I'm not speaking for, on the
Oh.
council side, we've awarded bids via resolution.
Yeah,
We don't need to on the RDA, we're doing this through the RDA.
This is the, if there's an express item in the budget. That identifies it and you've already approved the budget and it's for that item,
Okay.
then you can do it. If it's not even an express item in the budget. But you just have a budget for example, streets, that type of thing. Then you would award by resolution. This much money for this street, this much money for this street, that type of thing. So, I'm assuming that this is
in the budget.
in the RDA budget. as I
Yeah.
So
said.
in the budget that will.
Yeah, it's probably best practice to do by resolution, but we didn't prepare one. For this, we just.
We could just, you're okay, both of you, if we just move to award the bid.
Yeah, by approving the budget, it's a tentative, but well,
Okay.
final budget, you'll approve the money for the
Yeah.
project anyway.
Yeah.
So,
And we've approved the tentative budget.
mhm.
So Mayor, I would move that we follow the recommendation of Jones and Associates in accepting the project bid from J. Wilkinson and Sons in the correct bid amount of 1.479 site 962.50 cents. Say that better, 1,479,962.50.
I'll second that, Mayor. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Accept the bid from J. Wilkinson and Sons for 1.479,962.50. Jeff. Aye. Tony.
Aye.
Eric. Aye. Dave.
Aye.
Okay, that passes. Thank you for your work, Ty.
You bet.
It's been a process. And
Substantial.
this allows us to get going because we have to be done by the end of the year.
Correct.
Our year goes from June to June.
All right. Okay, let's move now to the council agenda. Yeah, I'd like to welcome our visitors. Appreciate your interest, taking this class.
Still up to what's in your packets.
Yeah, I checked that there.
I'm at the wrong date, the wrong packet. The same numbers, so. No different numbers. No. You're trying to throw me, aren't you? Yeah.
Okay, could I ask you and Eric give us the pledge?
You betcha.
Dave, can you give us a?
All right. If you'll repeat after me, I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, we gather before thee as we begin the Morgan City Council meeting. We're thankful for the opportunity we've been given to meet and to serve the residents of Morgan City. We're thankful for the beautiful valley that we inherit. We're thankful for our freedoms that we enjoy. We pray now that as we consider the affairs of the community and the city, we might make decisions based in the best interest of our residents. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Thank you. Okay, I will entertain a motion from the minutes of the council meeting April 22nd.
I've got a couple of questions.
Okay, well, first I need to have an approval of the meeting's agenda.
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Dave, you have some,
Yeah, on the meeting, the city council meeting, Ty, you made a reference in the minutes. The council of governments and the community impact board. I didn't know what the community impact board is.
So it's in the Department of Community and Culture, I believe, at the state office, but that's where federal lease money, a portion of federal lease money for oil and gas goes into a separate fund. And a lot of the southern communities or the Uinta Basin, they all put in projects that get funded by the CIB board. So it's to offset the impact of mining industry. And we don't qualify for grants, but we do qualify for loan. And so they have a requirement that you submit your capital improvement list every year to the CIB board. And then if we ever needed a loan, we could only ask for something that was already on their approved by our board. And
You mentioned that before.
yeah,
So thank you.
you bet.
Just another technical item, we're looking to approve the minutes of the city council meeting of 22nd, but we also have minutes of the Morgan City Council work meeting of the same day. We didn't have a quorum, so the work meeting was canceled, but I'd suggest that we still approve the minutes of the work meeting also. Your thoughts, Gary?
Well, they wouldn't be official minutes of the meeting, but they would be. They'd just be a conversation as to what happened.
Yeah, my thinking is there wouldn't be official minutes because there were no minutes to discuss, but it would make a record that would say the meeting was canceled.
Yeah, that would be good.
And on the minutes, at the bottom, these minutes were approved at the May 13th, 2025 meeting, so I suggest we do what we said we're gonna do. Yeah. That's on minutes, a couple of questions on the warrants. We moved those, or do we have other items on the minutes?
anybody have any more discussion on the minutes?
Okay.
Who's in here, so?
Yeah, was I. Ty, just a couple items that I didn't know, maybe right off, but they were on page 2, and I'm not sure which of the warrants, I'm not sure which the PDF number that would be, but Laminated Wood Systems, an invoice for 12,218 for supplies, ELR structure, just wondered what that was.
I don't know, it's on my computer. I just look at the line item. I think it was for power department.
Is that the updated?
No, he's looking at the warrants.
Well, I remember when I covered that, it sounded weird because it was a vendor. Yeah, but it wasn't, it was,
That was legit.
yeah, I think it was for the power department.
Oh,
Yeah, it was power. Power department, I just can't
Just
remember exactly what it was.
merchants.
Yeah.
The other question I had was just on the Chamber of Commerce, we make a donation, or I guess it's considered membership dues of $20,000, which you pay us an annual amount, I'm sure, but how do they assess their membership fee? I mean, are we paying a
So we paid,
portion amount to what maybe any other business would?
no, not a business, but the county pays 25,000 and the city pays 20. And our dues are in exchange for operating the city sponsored events. So part of that is they do 4 events every year. like 4th of July, hometown Christmas.
Is there any, I mean, you're on the board, is that right?
Yeah,
I guess, how do we know that we're getting a bang for our dollar? I mean, they could one year say we're not gonna do any of it and pocket 20,000, for example.
so the first year I got here, I can't remember the dollar amount now, but just for the one event, we saved $12,000 from what we paid out of pocket ourselves. So if we were to do 4th of July and purchase the fireworks, then we would be,
I remember that being the reason that we said we'll make the contribution to you, but I guess my point is, as time goes on, how do we ensure that it's still working the way it was in
Yeah.
10 years ago?
yeah, the attendance. The
And then, yeah,
attendance is really good at all the events and
the other thought I had, if you're on the board, they probably should provide a financial statement.
yeah, they do a budget, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, if we had a retreat to Hawaii or something, you can.
Yeah, no, they're still all volunteer, 100% volunteer, just putting the money right into the community, so.
Yeah. Yeah, again, are we at a bank for a dollar?
Yeah.
I mean, it was in my mind, I wasn't here, but it was a great decision to move that to them.
Yeah,
For the support of that's happening.
yeah, I couldn't create a committee and assign them to be excited about anything, so it works really well.
Plus it adds some permanence to the chamber too.
Mhm.
Prior to that, the chamber struggled with activity and attendance.
Yeah.
Gives them some direction.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Yeah.
And they do a good job.
Do awesome, yep.
It's like standing room only at their events.
Mhm.
There's no other discussion, Steve. I would move to approve the minutes of the city council meeting of April 22nd, the minutes of the Oakland City Council meeting of the same date, and the warrants from 4/19/25 to 5/8/25.
Second. On a roll.
Well, I'll do it, even though I wasn't here a second.
Oh.
There's your second. He wasn't here either, so we got.
Jim was here. Yes, Jim. You got a second for us, Jim?
Oh, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Anybody join on your computer?
Nope,
Ty, don't tell Tracy that I asked those questions.
okay.
Okay, I don't see anybody for citizen comments and unless you two citizens have any comments. Okay, thank you. Okay, let's move, open a public hearing.
You know, Steve, should we mention, you may not want to stay till midnight with us. I know what some of the other, when the other students were here, they wouldn't stay for the whole meeting, so don't feel an obligation to have to stick around. I mean,
We won't tell you who left early and who stuck around,
Overachievers
yeah,
yeah.
in life, it's just who we are.
Been your whole life.
when you do your report, ask for extra credit for how long you stayed. There's a-
Yeah, we're overachievers, we can't help it.
You can tell your teacher that we adopted a resolution that you could get an A.
Did a good grade on it.
Thanks for coming.
Just out of curiosity, like how many more things do you guys have in the city meeting? Like how, could you keep closing the meeting, like doing different meetings, like, yeah? Do you have to do that?
This mayor's head's too thick. to
So-
answer that.
Typically, we just have the city council meeting. And because it's budget season, then like what Gary is explaining, then each entity, the RDA, MBA has a separate budget, so we have to open and close
Those meetings?
those meetings.
Oh, gotcha.
But they only happen as needed, so when we have RDA business, then we won't have another meeting for probably 3 months. And then we'll call an RDA meeting when it's time to do a report, when we renew. Or if we have to amend a budget or something.
Okay.
I bet.
So tonight's just a lot of typically it's just the one meeting.
No, the council meets the second and fourth Tuesday of every month. We also have the planning commission that meets on the third Tuesday monthly.
You just caught us on a good night when we're opening and closing a lot of meetings.
We actually did one of these in 30 minutes, I think, or 20 minutes one night. It was a ball or something going on.
Oh, well, that makes sense. Yeah.
High schools. Basketball. I think.
Do you have quite a few more items on the agenda?
There's a budget that'll take, Tony, Jim has a lot of questions. But people's done.
We just have one agenda item. It's just the budget.
This is on the official record here, Mayor.
But this-
Okay.
With that being said, though, hey, I'll make a motion.
Just one's left. And
Public hearing for
So the other one is left one page.
You go through those lines and lines.
I do, but I just have to wait and see what they ask.
For the fiscal year, beginning
So-
of July first,
Yeah,
2025, and ending June 30th, 2026.
So
Sorry.
You have.
Okay.
here, you can keep a copy. You can take a copy, but
Something hearing,
If you think about it, we have to.
all in favor?
Exactly what they're going to. see every year.
and I'm responsible for everything. So,
Well, all that being said, Mayor, just.
Mayor,
I'll make a motion. Okay.
Better do that one. 1041.
No, he said no.
I have to put that on there.
Gary, you have.
Think about it.
Sorry.
It's-
I need a little comment.
Now, my goodness.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing for adoption and start
Yeah.
ordering the election on July 1st, 2025, and ending June 30th, 2026.
Second. Okay, we have a motion, we decide to close the public hearing.
Thank you, guys.
That was.
Aye.
great. See you later. Yeah.
Everybody's good? Yep. Okay. All right, let's move to the active agenda. Review, adoption of tentative budget for Morgan City for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2025, and ending June 30, 2026. And then setting a date for a public hearing to adopt final budget. Resolution 25-08. Any discussion? Let's have Ty give us an introduction.
Okay, so in your packet, I accidentally printed the wrong end date. And while I was sitting here, I just realized I couldn't get on my computer like I had the other budgets pretty well. But the general fund, I was like, oh, I better go get me a copy. And then when I sat down to print me a copy, then the setting was on my computer and I realized I had printed till 2025. And so it has the 2025 budget, not the 2026. So that's why I printed you off a new copy. So there are some differences in the next year's budget. So property tax pretty well just stays the same. I put 700,000. Just I don't think the certified tax rate will recognize growth and give us that much, but we'll be okay to accept whatever the certified tax rate is
Sure.
this year. That's my,
Prediction for this year.
that's my, yeah.
I wonder if maybe values have softened just a little bit enough to
Bump up to,
give us a little bump, you know,
yeah. Yeah, but on the revenue side, I don't see it.
changing.
Yeah, so typically, when they say revenue neutral, it's less than you actually collected the year before. It's not actually, it's a prior year's budget amount that they go off of, not what you actually collected. So even though we did truth and taxation last year, it's not gonna even recognize that we did an increase last year. It's just I won't get into my personal
Yeah, that's
feelings about how they calculate the certified tax rate, but it's,
the one that, the one that Only Gary knows in the whole state how to figure.
It's in a black box. I have everyone has to open it. All the years of this.
There's a key to the box.
There's a key in the box.
I actually went to the tax commission. I scheduled an appointment and had them sit down and explain it to me and they couldn't. So cause I asked them about the formula's right in the system, like I could see, and I asked them about where's the new growth? And why is that backed out? Like you put it in, but then you back it back out and it's not even the same revenue that we collected the year before, but they couldn't understand. It's set, so once you put it in the front end, that spits the numbers out the back end and nobody's allowed to touch it, so. But I did make a personal visit to be educated on it, but I tried. Anyway, so that's the same, sales tax is pretty steady. One thing that I am introducing is a met tax, so that's 300,000 is the estimate revenue. That would come.
That's the 31.2.
31,330. Yeah, so that's called municipal energy tax. We can't really vote on that tonight. It's just in the budget. So even if we adopt the budget, it doesn't mean that the tax is in place. It just means that we're interested in entertaining it. If you could say, yeah, we're not interested in that during the budget process and say, take that out. And then we wouldn't even, we wouldn't even consider it. So that's why I included it in the tentative budget. That's up to 6% on energy, which is gas and power. So it's a user tax and kind of relieves the pressure on property tax. So that was kind of a general thing that I've tried to maintain is not having property tax go above 30% of our overall tax revenue, not the restricted tax, just the sales tax, property tax, and this would introduce the third non-restricted tax. And so right now, we're at 33%. If we adopted the met tax and collected 300,000, then it would be 29%. So it just lowers the percent of the property tax would be just under 30. But it's an additional revenue. So I think in the future years, we wouldn't have to be so concerned about keeping up with property tax that we have been up to this point. The other thought behind that is for this year, it would generate about 300 and we would transfer 500,000 to the capital improvement. So a meeting or two ago, we adopted the capital improvement list and Dave, you brought up, we got $14 million worth of top priority projects here. How do we fund them? And this is one of those mechanisms that not enough to do a project with on an annual basis, but I would look at it as a flow through. So instead of just spending the 300,000 on operational costs, it would go to that transferred amount and go into capital improvements.
Really like the concept or the idea that says that someone says, well, you've increased taxes. Well, here's what you get for it. Here's the capital improvement that you get for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And reduce taxes, but then you eliminate that project you wanted, or don't you?
Yeah. So in your discussion, if it's something that, you're totally against, it can be removed from the budget really easy because we just take that same amount out of the capital transfer. So top money in, money out, it doesn't mess with operational costs. It would just be a pass through from general fund to capital improvements. Go ahead, Tony.
So, like you made, if I heard you correctly, you say, okay, we're doing the theoretically adopt this 6% municipal energy tax, okay? Then is it safe to say, and in doing so, we're going to relax or loosen up a bit on our certified tax rate, and not you know, it's going to give you some relief as far as your property tax is concerned. Is that a safe argument to make?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying is we wouldn't even look at we would just accept the certified tax rate this year, no matter
What it is?
what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it kind of holds the line. So, you know, the challenge with property taxes, you have a elderly widow that just owns her home and is just getting taxed, but uses very little power or very little lighting, doesn't have a whole house full of kids running the oven and the washer and dryer and all that stuff. It's a user tax, so the people paying that are the people that are consuming the most.
Basically, more of a user tax.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm all for trying to fund the city more on sales taxes than I am on property taxes, but that's just.
Yeah. So anyway, that's incorporated into the budget. So just as part of your discussion, that's the main item. The other thing is in the park impact fees.
Yeah.
That was to go towards the plaza. So we haven't spent park impact fees for 6 years. We need to either use that money or start paying it back. And the plaza is a great use of those funds. That increases the budget a little bit. So you'll also notice that in the appropriation of beginning fund balance, that's where that money comes from. So in order to pull for money from the past into this current budget year, then you appropriate beginning fund balance. And so
Is
that's,
that the 894?
yeah. And so that includes a little bit also to reduce the fund balance and put into the capital improvements. So
I don't know, 39 3 numbers.
yeah,
Appropriation of general fund.
That was my question. I mean, 2025, we didn't have anything in the original budget for park impact fees this year. Or suggested 350,000. Yeah, that's at 64,600.
Yep.
I had that highlighted, so I was wondering about that, so.
yeah.
So on the appropriation, I mean, you're saying that we put money in the account and allowing us to draw it out now. I mean, the other scenario would be we're just taking money from our savings and not replacing it, but your feeling is it's been replaced, that we was using it.
Yeah, so that's the mechanism of pulling from savings is to appropriate beginning fund balance.
We did 1.5 last year and 900 this year. I mean, you can't do that every year, definitely.
Yeah, and the other scenario is that's how we receive grants in a future year and pay and use the money in a following year. So it's a tool to balance the budget. And then if you notice, it's always in the budget, but then on the actuals, we hardly ever appropriate any beginning fund balance because we're able to,
2025 year to date, you haven't drawn any.
yeah, even though it's budgeted, means we could do it, but we've been able to stay within the budget to the point where we haven't needed to actually use the fund balance. But for budgeting purposes, that's the concept that if we spend every dollar that we had budgeted, which we don't, but if we did, because we do conservative budgeting, but if we spent every dollar that was in there, then that would, in order to pay those bills, we would have to appropriate beginning fund balance.
Bring that money out. And
So that,
you're saying you would anticipate not having, I mean, your goal would be not, similarly, maybe not having.
Yeah.
There's certainly a small revenue.
Right.
Okay, I think good answer.
so Ty, you started in front of you, 90,100, transfer of capital. Original budget 2025 to 22,009. This year you have 500,000. Does that including the net tax?
Yeah. So 300 of that would be met tax and 200,000. Yeah. And 200,000 would be, just appropriation of beginning fund balance. We're just trying to make a significant contribution to that capital improvement fund. The other thing the budget includes is a 2.5% cost of living. So the CPI was 3.1. So I just proposed a 2.5%, and then to fund that's all built into the whole budget that's with power, sewer, water. All of the personnel expenses include that. Health insurance fully funded, so that was an 8% increase this year. 8, and so the budget also addresses that, just to keep that going. We did buyout. Yep. Yeah. I want to say in that program, we saved 60,000 last year.
Fiscal year that's just.
Yeah, in 1 year, yeah.
Wow.
I can research that and bring it to the final budget meeting if you want. I can't remember exactly. I just we just every year it changes a little bit of who's doing the buyout, how many employees we have on the buyout option versus if we would have paid their full healthcare.
Keep that down to the pen.
How often does the law enforcement contract get negotiated?
It hasn't for quite a few years. I've been approached 2 years in a row, and they always come at a random time. So I say our budget year is this, but I also tell them that instead of just renegotiating that contract, I'd like to have a city-county agreement with everything in it, and it gets updated every single year. So Kate and I have talked about doing that. Fire came and asked for more money too, and the same thing is they got turned back around and pointed at Kate. So Kate and I will, work towards that, but it hasn't been adjusted for a couple years. But that's mostly on me, just telling them it's not budget time. And then if you would like, then I'd like to talk about it in context of everything that the city and county do in agreement back and forth. So
Yeah, Layton, like you have Davis County. But then you would have, does that cover all your law enforcement?
No.
Davis County, yeah.
Layton has its own law enforcement.
So if you're in a county with one city, it's the county sheriff's department.
I can give you a complete history on that if you like.
You know where I'm going?
I know exactly where you're doing.
That we should be covered with law enforcement.
so
I
they
can give you a complete history on this.
yeah, so
We've gone through this first.
We used to pay the county, I go back in my years of service. We used to pay the county 300,000 or something a year for law enforcement. I asked the question one day and I said, how was that improved? And it led to a meeting. I still remember the meeting that we had. And we were there was another attorney there. Basically, when I asked, so Morgan State was part of Morgan County, correct? Right. So were we entitled to some law enforcement being part of Morgan County? And sure, if we go to the election, you're entitled to a basic, what do they call it, basic protection? And I said, okay, so obviously the next question was, so what we paying 300,000 as a city? I still remember to this day, the answer was you were paying for enhanced service.
What enhanced?
And I said, define that. Enhanced service, like tell me what that enhanced service is. So. One day I'm driving down Ogden and I see a car go by and it says. Weaver County Sheriff's Department proudly serving West Haven City. So I call up West Haven City and I said, what's going on? He says, we contract. However many police officers we want to patrol West Haven City, and we contract with the county. For our police department, that way we don't have to fund our own police department. And I thought about it, and I thought. To me, that makes sense, because now if somebody asks me, what's the enhanced service, you can always say, well, we contract with the county for. One police officer or two police officers or whatever to be assigned to Morgan City. So it took all that arbitrary kind of, what are we paying for, nobody knows, out of the equation. So that's where we are. We contract with the county for one law enforcement officer. That should represent the total cost of that officer for a year, because that's how
Yeah, one officer actually costs more than what we pay.
it hasn't gone up.
Yeah, yeah, but we do have a dedicated car.
That's what.
Yep.
It makes sense to me with what it did originally.
Okay, so it's not a problem in my head, but it just seems like there's no. I hate to say audit, but there's no. Like, how do we know that we're getting coverage? Do they keep a record? The sheriff's department?
They can, not on, they could give us either their schedule shifts. So every time I'm out in the parking lot, I know who the Morgan City car is. And they know who they are. So that's how I do it, as I just ask who's the city car, and as long as they know who's that dedicated car, then I'm comfortable with that. The only reports that we've ever gotten in the past, and we haven't for a while, are their dispatch reports. If you want to see a breakdown of how many tickets or calls happened within the city limits. And that's great, but it also doesn't really, just like if we had our own police department, I couldn't base our do we have 4 officers because we have X amount of tickets, or the tickets up or down because we're doing a good job, or other factors, but we could get a copy of the dispatch reports if we would like.
But it's a great question, and it's one that I often wonder about as well, because technically what we're saying is. We're contracting to have that officer 40 hours a week, essentially in Morgan City. How do we know that's happening? I don't know. But that's essentially what we're saying. Now, in that meeting, we had a conversation came up, well, you're only gonna have one officer for 40 hours, we can do the rest of the hours during the week, and the answer was, well, that's basic. We'll just take our basic law enforcement that we receive as part of Morgan County. But to your point, I don't know how we know one officer is spending 40 hours a week in Morgan City.
Well, I dug into it a couple of years ago and called some mayors, cities about this size, and it's a lot higher something. And that right there, it's just curiosity that, and you see them all the time, so I guess they can have one dedicated, but if that one that's traveling through that single LaCroix and sees a violation, then they can take care of it.
Did they rotate them once upon a time?
Yeah, they
rotate the city officer.
Yeah, they rotate them, and just because the headquarters is here, we actually get more than one car. Most of the time, there's at least 2 cars on shift. But one's dedicated, and they help with the crosswalk. If we have a problem on a street, they're really good to work with. We call them up if we see a problem, and so I'm not worried about the
Yeah.
value of the dollar amount.
No.
So
We're there as much law enforcement contractor he did 1 years ago.
mhm.
back end, we didn't even have a good answer as to what our enhanced service was, so.
No, I'm not saying in a negative way. But it's just that there's no really no accounting for it. As long as it's covered, I'm happy.
Yeah,
I know it's working because I had a resident I was with the other day and he didn't like the sheriff's department. I had to do why, it's because they gave my son a ticket.
yeah.
So,
If I can, just on the budget, just to finish up the budget, not a lot's changed in the capital improvement fund. I think there's $1 million in there for, like we said, the part of the plaza project. Water and sewer, pretty well stable. Power does have the, increase in the, that base rate, so we've increased to $2.50 every year. This will be the last one, so the base rate will be 10. That'll go up, and then we're evaluating the kilowatt hour rate.
But we're
Right
getting
now.
closer to where we should be, right?
So yes and no. So part of the issue is we have that underground project. That's looks like it's gonna go over $1 million. And that's kind of the challenge in power is you could spend $1 million really fast. And so we do have a fund balance, but we have that, and then we have a natural gas generator project ramping up. So I hate to deplete it and then bump it back up. So we have a couple of big projects that could cost, $2 million total, but that project's also included in the budget, the $1 million for, and then we get reimbursed 600,000, so. But so far, it's almost out to bid, and just the equipment came back at $1 million, and the whole project was supposed to cost $1 million. So we don't have bids back yet, but we could have a pretty good overrun on that to
How will that be covered?
just the fund balance. So we have built up some fund balance, since we adjusted the rates, but
This,
I'm gonna wait till hopefully we'll get bids back before the final budget. And then the final budget will get adjusted based on the,
would we need to consider additional increases?
no. No, we'll make it work, but, we're doing okay with the rate, the way it is. And then I don't know if you noticed, Rocky Mountain Power had proposed a 30% rate increase
Yeah.
to that's, they were only awarded 4, but they're gonna appeal that. Yeah. But they're struggling too, so.
okay,
I think that,
great work. Thanks for what you do.
yeah, you went,
Blows me away that you can keep so many things in your head at one time.
I just got one more question. Ty, trying to compare what you had sent us versus what you just gave us. It answered a lot of my questions. I just wish I would have had the new information. I would have saved a lot of time.
sorry.
Remind me though, what a lost expense and a cost expense is.
So LOST just stands for local option sales tax. That goes to transportation. So there's a revenue source on sales tax, and that's 1/4% that comes directly to the city. And cost is the county option sales tax. I've just labeled it local and county just to know the difference. And then, of course, that's not what they're typically known as. It's like 2219 or, 4th or 5th quarter. But we get the county adopted 1/4%, and we get 0.1% of that one. So that's what the cost amount is.
In the general fund, that 330 lost and 150 cost. Is that typically the same amount that we receive?
Yeah, so up at the tax, on the tax at the very top, then it has local option sales tax and it has county option sales tax and so the estimated revenue is the same as the estimated expense.
Is that a separate line item? You just got, you don't have the acronym on the revenue side.
On the revenue side, yeah, so one's just called transportation and the other one's called sales tax county option. Yeah, so on the,
With it matching up.
right, yeah, that's what they are. So,
Yeah, again, thank you for all the work you do.
yeah, you bet.
Mayor, can I ask one
Yes.
question? So so 64,620 is park improvement slash, I'm assuming supply, it's in years. So, if I pay for the actual one, that was 35,000. But then I'm willing, energy was 250,000. So the increased cost in that is due to.
So in the budget, it's just for a future project, so it's just looking at, well, sprinklers were for the cemetery. And we just got the new pump in, and so we're thinking that we can get by with the current sprinkler system, but that one is because we applied for that grant to redo the ball diamond. And so we would spend that much, we would spend that total amount, and then we would get reimbursed. The amount that's in the grant revenue is the revenue side of that. And
I knew there'd be an explanation.
oh yeah, why it's different this year, yeah.
By the way,
But we don't know if we have that grant, it's just in the budget. So, oh, thank you.
I'm trying to do this for me. I'm proud of my park again. It's really nice.
And there's some baseball teams playing.
Yeah, it's been getting used, the ball diamond's been getting used.
Great. Okay. Any more discussion?
Dave, I didn't talk that long.
You did good, Sally. I was proud of you. I meant Jeff, really, he's the one that had the questions.
Okay, are you ready?
When do you want to do that? We got to set a date.
Yeah. Glasses on. Okay.
Me too. You got some, you got some more skis?
Yeah.
June 24th?
Why is that red? Is that a holiday or something?
Holiday somewhere.
Here's look at this one, when you can see better.
It is, Saint Jean Baptiste Day. Yeah, we can't do that.
Maybe I'll.
June 24th would work, right?
That work for you, Ty?
Yep.
Okay, I'll go. Mayor, I'll make a motion with the adoption of the tentative budget for Warren City for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2025. And ending June 30th, 2026, and setting and by June 24th. Will be when we'll a public hearing to adopt that final budget.
Eric, are we adopting this resolution?
Oh, resolution 25-08. Thank you, Dave. I didn't even see that at the end. Sorry. Thank you, Dave.
You got a second?
One second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
That's all.
Get this straight to,
Yeah, it's.
resolution 2508 and set that date for 6/24/25. Dave?
I.
Yep.
Tony?
Yeah,
Yeah, aye. Okay. Thank you, everybody, and let's move to the council reports. Did I see that we had 10 residents turn in their blue can?
So we had 12 requested, and we went back to pick up, but 2 of them had recycling and their can was full of recycling, so we didn't pick it up. So the net is 10. 12 requested it.
This is 12 days.
Okay.
We can give them back, whatever you're saying.
What's that?
We can give them back.
Well, we just left them at their house. Yeah, we didn't pick them up, so. About 4 of them refused flat out and didn't receive one, and then about 6 of them, we had to go back and pick up. And then 2 of them we tried, but they were full, so there's still a handful of them out there that at a future date could request a can, but it would cost them at that point, so.
Is it the same fee whether they accept the can or not?
Right, but they don't pay for the can if they accept it up front. If you order a can later, then there's gonna be a delivery fee. So,
In discussions with people on this recycling can, remember there's a diversion rebate that's been going into effect as well. Simply what that means is they're gonna take a look at what Morgan City has put into that landfill historically. And then once the recycling comes on board, how much is that going to reduce what Morgan City puts into that landfill? And then there's a credit that's awarded for that reduction or that diversion in the landfill into the groove, so. I don't think too many people probably are aware of that. So, you know, yeah, you have to certainly be urgent to
I
use it.
Never said what the history is.
Well, they know, Robinson Waste knows typically how much. You know,
We're
has been coming from Morgan City.
we're starting at 0, so everything that
Yeah.
we divert is, we get credit for.
Well, you know, we get people in 20, 30, 40% diversion rate, that's just money back in our pockets, so.
Yeah, and then I would also mention that we've had quite a few positive comments in the office. So not as many as the flag, but some positive comments.
I did get a question, how come so big a flag? Yeah.
Cause that's as big as they made.
Talk good.
We didn't want to be under him.
There you go.
Go.
Hey, I do have a couple things, Mayor. First of all, I want to thank Ty and staff for the emails with the updates. I greatly appreciate that. I really do. It just helps us so that it just, thank you so much, because when we do get questioned, it helps us know where we're at. Second thing I want to do is just thank Ty for all the work on the budget. I was actually in municipality in Wyoming, got thinking about the old days of having to put this budget together. And so again, I appreciate Ty for all your work and effort on putting the budget together, because it is no small chore. Those days when before it was a rascal to take care of this, so talking to them, just wanted to make that known. So thank you, Ty, for both of those things.
Thank you.
Welcome.
My comment, as I mentioned it a minute ago, the park looks, I think, exceptionally well. It looks really nice. The cemeteries obviously look very well. So kudos to our team on the cemeteries and
Yeah.
personally, I think outsourcing that part was a pretty good thing to do because it sure looks good on the page. So,
Yeah, I remember getting hammered for those.
do you remember 2 or 3 years
Yeah.
on the cemeteries?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, so really it looks, we're pretty proud of it. Pass that on.
Okay, well,
One question for Ty and Gary, the upcoming planning commission meeting, there's an item. Discussion of motion requesting a residential fence of approximately 8 feet. 2 questions, one, is that on there because it violates the code, and then number 2, is there a recommendation that will come to the city council from the planning commission on it?
I don't know if you can answer if it's gonna come back, but they are proposing something that's not covered in the ordinance, and so they're asking for planning commission's approval.
You said all they would need would be the planning commission, or does it, or sort of it's related, does that come with the council?
That's an interesting question. And the reason it is one of the things that I've been working with Wolf Summercorn and the sponsor of the bill, Musselman, passed the bill last year that said, when you get a use that isn't in your ordinance, then there needs to be a zoning appeal officer that makes a determination of whether or not it's like something else in your ordinance. And then if it's not, it needs to go to the city council on appeal as an administrative appeal, and city councils don't make administrative appeals. And so we've had to, that went into effect May 1st, and so that's kind of, it's a conundrum. But what I would say is this, I would say that if it's not in the ordinance, that either we need to add it to the ordinance or find an exception in the ordinance somewhere. But an 8-foot fence requires a foundation, a footing foundation. That's the difference between, that's the reason we allow for 6-foot fences throughout the city, but then when you hit 8 feet, you actually, it has to be constructed with a building inspector inspecting footings and foundation. Jeff, you're probably aware, back if you go to the fence too high that you can't have it blow over, and 8 feet is one that fits that category. So I'm not aware of the exact situation. I'll have to, I just looked and saw it on the agenda tonight.
Yeah, we require a fence permit, so if you're gonna build a fence whatsoever, you have to do a permit, and then it gets approved just by staff unless it's something that fits outside of the ordinance. So we'll have to follow up and ask the specifics and see.
Will you have some direction for the commission, maybe on what they need to decide or what they need to do then?
Yeah, I'll give her a call before Tuesday and
See
we'll
what's,
talk about other things. So
Still, the
Yeah.
6 feet is a typical size, and I thought we had something that said you can't go to 6 feet. We do not.
6 feet is all you allow.
Yeah.
So by
Okay,
negative implication, you don't allow anything over 6 feet.
and so they're asking for an exception.
Yeah, they're asking for something new and it's not in the ordinance, so. Either we have to decide to put it in the ordinance or.
Well, why would you need to change the ordinance if you can't go over 6 feet?
You wouldn't just leave it that way if you don't want to allow for an 8-foot fence.
Oh, I see. If we do allow for 8 feet, then we need to change the
Right.
level to 8 feet.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Dave. I was thinking just the opposite of what you were thinking, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we'll look at that and
Well,
make recommendation if that's okay.
well, I ultimately it might come to the, if it's not allowed, it would. If the planning commission has a negative recommendation that we don't see it, if they have a positive, then we have to.
Yeah, then they would be recommending a change in the ordinance. I mean, bring the ordinance up to you. Exactly. Where we define, the approvals for fences, we would just simply add that you can take up to 8 feet with planning commission approval or whatever. But we'll make it. Recommendation, it's okay.
Yeah, I just wanted some insight, some color on what was going on, what they'd be asked to do. Okay, thanks. Okay. Okay, is your date on time? So, okay.
so, I sent all my updates in an email, and I'll do another one,
Yeah.
so.
Makes it. I would recommend Eric.
So-
I.
So I appreciate the feedback, because I think I mentioned before, it's hard to know what, not so much like, hey, I'm super busy, or, we've done this or we've done that, trying to figure out that balance between what we've had discussions with people, but I've kind of gone off of like the planning commission agenda, and it seems, unless you have recommendations on any changes, we'll, some project updates and,
Originally, we said we leave it to your good judgment, and so far, out of 3 issues, it's been.
been okay.
Yeah, I just, again, I just appreciate it, cause even just like the future subdivisions coming in.
Yeah.
Now we can kind of know where we're at in the process,
Yeah.
so that we're not getting, cause I'm getting a lot now.
Well, and if you,
What are you guys doing? What are you thinking?
yeah, and if you do have,
You know what I mean?
if you do have something on any one of those items, so it's very brief, right? It's just, I'm trying to keep it a one
You're doing a
pager,
Great job.
a one pager, but then if it's like, hey, I haven't heard anything about this, then just reach out to me and I'll get more info on it, so.
Could I ask? They asked you about it, and I didn't put on there earlier. I noticed you said something down there about applying for the grant for like Fish Pond Park, is that?
Yeah, so the Wasatch Peaks, yeah, so Wasatch Peaks has, as part of the settlement, they had the $4 million that they set aside, and there's a group of 5 individuals that make up a committee that gets to determine community projects. And so I'm gonna submit for the train viewing park and the fish pond park to that committee to see if they'll award. It's capped at 500,000. You know, they have a whole bunch of projects proposed, and so you know, kind of first time, one time thing, it's worth exploring, but I don't have a feel on, you know, being successful or not based on all of the other applications,
They
but
don't, are they scoring the projects?
they're, as a committee, like there was no criteria, there's no like grant application, you basically just submit your project in a Google Doc and they'll evaluate them, but it's not like a grant process I'm familiar with, like how to score high or whatnot. So just put in on it. So I'm not sure. I was hoping to know before the budget was adopted, but I couldn't find anything that said a deadline on when they were gonna let people know. So it's looking like it'll probably be after July. So the state's budget follows our state's budget starts in July 1, 2, and so that might be what they're thinking is awarding that grant during a brand new budget year for them as well. I don't know.
Can I just say how nice, personally over here, but can I just say how nice it is to see kids over playing on that baseball diamond again?
It's cool.
I've sat over there for quite a few years, without a whole lot going on.
Good. I just have one little update. I've had some residents concerned when we lower the flag to be in the wires. But UP came through and came down.
Good.
So,
Good work.
and even pull the poles out. Problem is, they're just steel cables, so they aren't worth anything, or
They're not copper.
copper, yeah, they're not copper, so. Okay, if there's no more updates, this meeting's adjourned. Okay.
Mike's right here.
Yeah, okay. You're good.
Okay.
So we don't have a forum.